Hello and welcome everybody to another attributed session brought to you by us here at Dreamdata. Today I have the great pleasure of welcoming Monica Dinu to our show. Monica reached out to me a few weeks or months back, telling an amazing story about how her company Alasco has made that very, very hard shift from being a traditional outbound focused company to actually running an inbound model instead. And that's what we're going to talk about today, like the ups and downs, the hard parts, the fun parts of doing this shift, and hopefully educating me and everybody else listening on how to do this. So I'm really excited for this conversation, Monica. But to get us started, I would love to hear just kind of the quick Monica pitch and the quick Alasco pitch. And because it's B2B marketers listening, maybe you can describe kind of who's the buyer of your product, what is the ACV approximately that we're talking about here, so the tactics kind of gets the right framework. Thank you for joining, Monica.
Yep. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you for having me, and hello, everyone. So, let's get started with a rough 2-year journey. But before that, I'm a VP Growth and Marketing at Alasco. Basically, I run marketing, but also dip my fingers across directly generating pipeline, getting insights from the market and feeding them to our product team. And also talking to customers, making sure account expansion goes the right way. Because I deeply believe, I found through my experience in marketing that good marketing is critical, but at some point it can only take you so far. So in a way, you also need to act at the seams between the departments, because that's where things break down and where the customer experience break down. So I guess that's my number one marketing philosophy up to this point. Otherwise, I've spent most of my 15-year career in B2B marketing in domains that are generally considered not sexy, like I worked in telecom, manufacturing, IoT, financial services, construction, and now real estate.
Yeah, that's great. But that probably also means that the competitors are maybe not always drawing on the most fancy tactics out there, and I guess also the receivers of these tactics, the prospects, are maybe not used to being approached in very modern ways. So I guess there's a balance there with how much technology to pull on and how much traditional you need to be.
You're totally right. You're making a very good point. But on the flip side, if somebody, is used to like no marketing or poor marketing, it's quite easy to stand out.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And generally, I've also been, I think, for the past 10 years, only in B2B startups. I've also been the first person in the marketing team, starting from zero revenue, so like pre-seed, but also in scale-up, Series B and up. So I kind of seen all sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, we're very similar background, then I can tell you. I've tried it a few times as well. Monica, maybe you can just start by, if we try to kind of paint like a pre-shift picture about how Alasco operated. It's not to kind of say they did things wrong, but kind of how did they do things before you started to set the scene.
Before starting with that, so Alasco is a B2B scale-up in the construction tech and prop tech space, based out of Munich. Now, of course, we expanded across Europe, but when I joined, we were kind of strictly in Munich and serving the DACH market, so Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. As many other products or brands, Alasco started as an SME solution. So initially, they were focused on small and medium property developers, helping them to digitize their financial workflows. So basically, contracts, invoices, approving the invoices, pushing all that into a cash flow view, inflows, outflows, managing their sales of units, and so on. So kind of in the whole build life cycle, we dealt with the financial processes. So back then, when I joined, Alasco had quite a large team of BDRs who'd used to normally outbound to our audience, these kind of SME companies
Yeah.
in construction. However, a perfect storm happened at the time.
Okay.
Why
Yeah.
we made this shift to inbound? One was that in 2023, kind of the economy went down, so construction volumes not so many due to high interest rates, supply chain
Yeah.
difficulties,
Insecurity in general. Yeah.
war, energy prices, and all that. So the market was very okay. We're not moving.
Mm.
So that was the external context. On the internal front, we had a couple of attritions in our BDR team. They were with us for like when I joined for 4 or 5 years, which is like a lifetime
Yeah.
BDR position.
Yeah.
And finding people, it's very intensive. So we didn't have a lot of time we rehired, but that took us a while.
Yeah.
And then secondly, our second part of the platform that Alasco was building was this ESG management solution aimed at the existing built environment, so asset managers, which
Yeah.
were much less affected by the economic crisis, and because they didn't need to build, they just need to operate the buildings.
Yeah.
However, the sustainability space offered ample opportunities for market education. It's not like you could just call them, hey, would you like an ESG management solution?
No.
So out of all these three, we decided to really focus on building the brand, building the storytelling, trying to shape the category and move to inbound. In order to protect our revenue on the construction side, we decided to focus more on existing assets until the crisis goes away, kind of. So these were kind of the three things that made this shift necessary.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't EU also implement some kind of ESG reporting? I don't know if it's a law or if it's a...
There is a lot of regulation at EU level, but also at the country level.
Yeah.
Admittedly, this year with CSRD, it kind of, they took a step back, also influenced by the ideas, like the trend coming from Trump and the US.
Yeah.
But at the EU level and also country level, so UK, they have super strong regulation about how buildings need to be retrofitted to make them environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
Something we call net zero. So basically a building doesn't emit any type of emission.
Yeah.
So we had also the regulation trend pushing us forward. So this was kind of the context when he decided, hey, we need to shift to inbound.
Yeah. But that was when you started or after you started, sort of?
Right around that time, yeah.
Yeah. Exciting. And was that part of the job description when you started, or did that happen after you signed the contract?
I discovered it after.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
To be very honest.
Yeah. And what kind of, as that kind of decision was made, kind of what was the kind of plans that you guys started to lay out? And I'm eager to hear some of the things that worked and also some of the things that worked and not that well.
Yeah, true. So what we started with, at least what I started with, was first and foremost, I spoke to prospects and customers to understand where they're coming from. Typically listening to gong calls or recordings is useful, but sometimes I also have a little bit of background in market research, so it helps me frame the question or go deeper onto certain topics.
Yeah.
So this was one of the first thing I did when I joined Alasco.
And did you go physically to meet them or book calls in their calendars digitally?
Typically on Zoom, on Teams, wherever they used.
Yeah.
During that first quarter, that's what I did, and also at events. And I'm going to come back to events later because this is like a centerpiece of our whole shift.
Yeah. What were the things you were asking these? What were you trying to find out as you did kind of these client interviews?
A couple of very simple questions like, why did you choose Alasco? How did you solve that problem before? Which other solution you considered? How happy are you with Alasco? Where would you like our platform to evolve? Sort of like this, your life before and after.
Yeah. The some would say now classic positioning questions that that April Dunford would say as well that you should be asking.
Exactly. And like, if you do this kind of interviews, a lot of patterns, you can spot a lot of patterns that help you both in marketing, but also in product. So, for example, I was speaking to this recently signed customer, and I discovered a totally new use case that wasn't part of our, let's say, normal go-to-market.
Yeah.
On the sustainability, on specifically on the due diligence process around ESG.
Super nice.
Yeah, so that was step number one.
Actually, I'm just curious, like if we go even deeper then, so you collected the information, like what did you then do? I think a lot of people will then kind of like where did you go with that information? Did you go to the CEO? Did you go to the product team or the marketing team? Kind of this kind of collection of information about the customers. How do you translate that into becoming valuable for the company?
There are two parts to it. So one is speaking to actual buyers. Secondly, since I wasn't really super familiar with the space, was a desk research around the market. Like, how does an asset manager operate? What
I wouldn't know.
The French is a cap rate or the yield, you know?
Yeah.
We need to understand their business model, not our product.
Yeah.
And to see market trends. So with all that information, we had a couple of rounds in the SLT, Senior Management Leadership, where we tried to map, okay, where is the market going, like trends, volume, where is the money? Follow the money.
Yeah.
And then also what our prospects and customers value us for, where they see our value, and which are the spaces we could potentially move. I would like to say it was like a very structured strategy creation process in the likes of Roger and Martin, where to play, how to win. It wasn't. But that's part
that's textbook, and then there's real life as well.
Yeah, fortunately, we have a very tight and supportive SLT team, so there weren't like any headbutting things like that.
That's good. Okay, so you involved the whole leadership team about the findings. How did you then what were kind of the next steps you then stepped into on behalf of the marketing team?
Yeah, I developed a sort of map because, for example, one of my pet peeve when working with, in general, with various companies, people tend to mix up words. They call it brand, category, positioning, value prop, kind of meaning whatever the speaker wants to mean. So to keep everyone aligned, I created this map in Miro where we start from the company mission and vision, which are quite fundamental, rarely changed, and are driven by the founders and investors. Then going down into the strategic narrative, storyline, like what is the market, how does success look like for our customers, which are the obstacles, and how do we come in and help them solve their business problems.
So this is like a real document that exists. And
yeah.
I think like every company would really benefit from, even though it's painful, but actually making this document.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested, happy to share with your audience. Then the next step was the positioning, which is typically shorter lived, like a year and a half or two, depending if there's new pieces of regulation or a competitor does a really bold move that forces you to act. And from that, you kind of go, on the one hand, on the employee value proposition. So you take the P&O, HR, recruitment kind of narrative.
Oh.
And on the other hand, you go down to ICP personas and all those nice GTM concepts.
Yeah.
So that was our map, and I come back to it frequently.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's also like it's good to have for when you have to kind of come to alignment between teams or just inner teams to say, does it actually fit, whatever we sit with right now, does it actually fit with this map that we have laid out for ourselves?
Yeah, it's a checkpoint that I learned the way back. So I started my career in branding, and this is another misconception. And sorry, stop me if I'm rambling here.
No, that's great.
Concept. Nowadays, in the tech world, when people talk about brand, they sort of think, okay, I have a nice logo, I have this color scheme, and I have a brand campaign. But in fact, a brand is everything that you do as a business that creates a certain perception in the eyes of an employee or a customer.
Yeah.
So when I did rebranding projects, I had like a similar map. Okay, we have this brand. How does this reflect in whom do we hire? How do we interview? How do we incentivize? How do we do performance management?
So you actually did a rebrand process as part of this?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it's kind of a little bit my internal work because, coming in on a new job, I wouldn't advise to, like as a marketing leader, to say, hey, nothing is nice, let's rebrand.
Yeah.
I did kind of my own internal work to keep us on track, but I didn't go into, as a new joiner, marketing lead in a company, there's two things you shouldn't really touch, a rebrand and a website redesign.
Yeah. Do something that has an impact before you start doing something like that.
Yeah, so this was the map. So coming back to your thread, after agreeing in the SLT, look, this is our mission, vision, positioning.
Yeah.
I went down to like the hard work of defining our ICP. And while sifting through the data, obviously, like back then, I think 70% of our customers were SMEs. We had very few enterprise customers. We noticed a large chunk of revenue coming from these larger customers, interesting data point.
Yeah.
That wasn't spelled out in the strategy. So considering that the small and medium companies building homes, 5-unit apartments, and so on, weren't doing that great in the economical context, we decided to move up market. To larger companies. We call them enterprise, but obviously don't think enterprise like Microsoft level enterprise.
No.
In real estate, these are, I don't know, 100 to 500 people companies.
Okay, yeah. I was actually thinking, so the others would be like below 50 people and the others would be maybe 500 people or something.
Yeah, and typical enterprise is what, 10,000 employees and more. So
yeah, whatever you
not.
But that's pretty cool that you looked at the current revenue and said, why are we not going after more of these that pay us a lot of money?
Yeah, and then when going deeper, we realized, hey, but these larger customers, they get the same level of support as an SME. Obviously, consuming much less resources, they get the same onboarding, they get the same sales process. Yeah. Obviously, we can improve this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we had this insight that we could really scale our enterprise game.
Yeah. And I think a lot of companies can all agree, oh, that would be nice to do. But how do you actually do it? I think that's a super interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think that deserves its own podcast because we're still going through it and it's still painful and we haven't finished.
No. What were kind of some of the things that you set in place to kind of develop this upper end of the market for you?
Well, one thing that became clear to us, and now I'm talking generally for the company, is that we didn't have any enterprise sellers, right? So A couple we upskilled, but we also hired
Yeah.
people with experience in the enterprise space.
And
That's
what does that, yeah, maybe it probably differs from company to company, but what are the kind of, in your, in Alasco's world, what does an enterprise sale look like, and what are the skills needed to succeed with it?
yeah, good point. So one thing is we were looking for people able to deal with large buying committees. I mean,
Mm,
if you go into our Dreamdata instance, because I
yeah,
ran the numbers, in
yeah.
an SME sales, typically we interact with 2.3 people, whereas in the enterprise space is 13 people.
Yeah,
So you need somebody with the experience to
yeah,
know how to engage with all these people, to understand how bigger companies operate
yeah,
internally, because that's the biggest challenge. You know how long it takes just to align a call with such a customer, with everybody involved, could take
yeah,
2 months.
yeah. It's a lot of work.
So yeah, and I guess then we looked at coachability. Coachability is also a very important criteria for all our hires
Yeah,
because yeah, nobody knows it all. But we stayed away from hiring people from like super large companies like Autodesk or Procore, like our super large competitors, because
okay,
we realized we were way too small for them.
yeah,
We didn't have the whole support network to help them close on a deal.
yeah. I think that's also what we've seen the few times we've hired people from really large corporations is that it's very different mindsets, and the mindset works in a large corporation, but when you're smaller, sometimes you need to make the coffee. Sometimes you need to fix the problems yourself because there's no one else who can do it for you. But there's ups and downs and goods and bad things about people from both sides, right?
So to continue with the shift, after we had this idea about our ICP, we started coding it. So now when it's
Coding it.
interesting, yeah. I mean, let's try to define it, right? How
Yeah,
does our ICP model look like? So on the one hand, we have the firmographics, like
yeah,
company size, number of employees, and in our case, assets under management or construction volume.
yeah,
That's critical for our industry.
yeah.
And the second layer is about signals. And I guess it's here where something really magical happened last year, in the sense of what technology unleashed for us. Because for vertical solutions such as ours, signal platforms like Bombora, Six Sense, ZoomInfo don't work. We are looking for very, very specific things like, for example, when is a building permit issued?
Great.
Yeah. Or when a couple of investment management companies decide to build a third company, a joint venture, to deal with a transaction or a project.
Yeah.
So we have to hook up into like very specific databases.
I see. Yeah. How do you do that?
Well, yeah, thankfully around last summer, I think we started working with Clay,
Yeah,
which I don't know if you guys use it at
a
Dreamdata.
bit as well. Yeah.
It works brilliant for us and to give us all kinds of insights: who changed jobs, our champions, if they move to another company, which are the new hires in a company, because also we discovered our pitch lands best with people who are in a position between 6 to 12, 14 months. So
Mm.
quite early.
Yeah, yeah, and not the kind of grown stuck in what they're doing.
Yeah, so we kind of developed this signal hierarchy. Obviously, there's first party data, who's been on our website, downloaded, attended webinars, all that. And others are totally external, like building permits and job changes.
Yeah, super cool.
And this basically helped us build this model in HubSpot. We use HubSpot. So we use Clay on the one hand for signals, we use Snowflake as a data lake, and then we push the right stuff into HubSpot
Yeah,
to notify our sellers when they should reach out to an account.
Super nice.
Yeah, that's
Building permits. That's great. How do then do they start writing emails? Do they pick up the phone? What's their process?
it varies. It's usually a mix, or outbound, it's a mix of LinkedIn connections, email, phone, but also, and this is also super specific to real estate events. I discovered, to my surprise, real estate is very much a face-to-face in real life
Yeah,
industry. So, in order for them to gain trust, you have to show your face there
yeah,
repeatedly
yeah.
until they actually want to engage with you
Yeah.
and listen to your pitch.
Do you think is it a like a German thing, or is it a real estate thing?
No, it's a real estate
Yeah.
thing. They I don't know if you could make an analogy between buildings being very physical and also people working in the building environment being very physical.
Yeah, and then you're building something that needs to last for 50 years or whatever. So maybe that's just the mindset.
I mean, this doesn't mean that webinars don't work. They do work on the educational level
Yeah,
a lot,
yeah,
and we get great traction. But events and in real life contexts, so smaller, we also do roundtables,
yeah,
are very, very good for our pipeline.
yeah. So you've said now you started this new plan and this better focused ICP. So there's like these two paths, that there's the SME path and the is it like enterprise ABM path.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you do both of them at the same time, or like somewhat both of them at the same time, or just one of the two?
It's actually both. So the way we treat our GTM motion on the SME side, we still have BDRs,
Yeah.
NAs, but overall we run it more like an algorithm. Because at Alasco we've been doing this for like what 7-8 years now.
Yeah.
So we have all the infrastructure, the processes. The DACH SMEs know us, so the level of awareness is
Okay.
high. Brand is good.
Yeah.
It's kind of a self-sustaining motion.
Yeah.
Sometimes, okay, we do dedicated events or webinars, obviously, are for everyone, but it's more like an algorithm by now. The enterprise side of thing, I would say it's more like a mystery and heuristics at the moment. So we discover things, we have insights, what could work, what works, and we try to turn them into an algorithm. But I figure we're still 2 years until that point.
Okay. And when you say turn things into an algorithm, that's kind of where there's a playbook where kind of if we do approximately this, then
We get that.
yeah.
I mean, for the simple reason that if you talk to like the largest real estate companies, Heinz, Swiss Life, everybody tells you, look, we like you guys, but please be aware if you want to do a deal with us, might take 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So basically, you don't really have the data points to inform your decisions until then.
How do you then how do you do marketing? How do you keep deals alive when they take 2 or 3 years? What do you do in your team to support the sales in such a process?
Well, where should I start? I guess now it's a good time to talk about our ABM motion. So how did we start? For example, let's take UK, just a single market.
Yeah.
We started around summer last year with our VP Europe. Basically, she's in charge of sales all across Europe except the DACH, which has a different.
Okay. Yeah.
And we went and checked, okay, which customers do we have in UK? We didn't have too many back then.
Yeah.
Which are the target accounts based on our ICP profile? Which are the target accounts in UK?
Yeah.
Then we settled to around 150 accounts.
Okay. That's very specific.
Yeah, because at that time, I only had her doing sales.
Yeah.
We have more AEs, but for a person, I think 100, 200, it's like a max you
Yeah.
could do to keep everybody and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So then we went to Sales Navigator. We figured out from all those 150 companies which are the job titles most likely to be part of our buying committee.
Nice.
We're talking about sustainability managers, asset managers, portfolio managers, um, and sometimes the legal and reporting function.
Yeah. How many people does that equate to? Like 150 times 5 or 10 or something like that?
700, 800 people.
Yeah. Wow. That's so true, AVM, that it's like it's less than 1,000 people that you need to raise awareness amongst.
Yeah, so those people from LinkedIn, they went to our HubSpot
Yeah.
as an initial database.
Yeah.
Um, my colleague and I also personally connected with most of them on LinkedIn to
Yeah.
be sure we interact, we engage, and they
Yeah.
know our faces because, hey, real estate, they have to know you.
Yeah.
And then we systematically started to, I know it sounds weird, track these people down at events.
Yes. Yeah. It makes sense.
Because, okay, we had PropTech Connect. You get an app with all the attendees, or you've got Expo Real. So we specifically wanted meetings with certain people.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes into a loop because at an event you might meet, I don't know, 50% of the people you actually wanted.
Yeah.
At the next event, you'll meet the other 50% and kind of goes in a loop.
Yeah.
Another,
Don't make it sound too simple, Monica, because I'm sure it's not when it when it's real life.
it's not, it's always messy.
Yeah.
But I think we found a cadence that works for us. So another layer that we added were these roundtables,
Ooh, yeah.
which is like a curated group of people, around 10 people maximum, where we debate a topic. We had every kind of topic from how do you prove the ROI on your sustainability initiatives to how do you implement AI in your real estate company. And then we engage with these people, and out of this roundtable, we create usually a big report.
When do you pull up the roundtable card in the process? So you have let's just call them 1,000 people. You connect with all of them on LinkedIn. You've met them at the conferences. When do you play the roundtable card?
The roundtable card is, it's a pretty expensive tactic.
Yeah.
So we do it later in the process. So if you consider the typical ABM funnel with identified, aware, interested,
Yeah.
and selecting, this stage comes between interested and selecting.
Yeah.
That's why we
And
start.
is it I'm just trying to picture, do you fly them into Germany or do you fly to the UK and then ask them to show up at a certain place? Or like, I'm super curious to hear how this very specific ABM is done.
Yeah, so for the UK, in the case of asset managers, we typically do them in London and we fly there.
Yeah.
In Germany, the situation is a bit mixed because Germany, being a federal state, means our customers are split between Munich, Berlin, Hamburg, Frankfurt, and a couple of other cities.
Yeah.
And people don't travel. So again, we go to them.
Yeah.
So London is easy, Germany is not so easy.
Yeah, that's funny. And is it like a closed venue where no one else is allowed to enter, or are you filming it? And like, how's all the small tactical components?
Okay. Here it goes. So
It's just because I'm considering something similar for the Dreamdata playbook, so I'd love to hear how things work.
Yeah, sure. So we rent a space. It can be a hotel room. It can be a room in a co-working space. If you want to go for something more special, you can also book a room into a modern art museum. I've done this in the past because
Nice.
I wanted people to feel and think differently,
Super nice.
So book a room for like 10, 15 people. We also have a partner as a moderator because we don't want to like sell and pitch our solution directly.
Ooh, so okay, so you have an external person running the interesting.
The moderation.
Yeah.
Obviously, before that, we align who's coming, what questions I would need her to address to whom, what's the flow of the conversation, and all that.
That's great.
And then we run the roundtable. It's recorded, not video, typically just audio.
Yeah.
And then we work it out into a report that gets circulated to the people who participate to give their
Yeah.
blessing naturally.
Yeah.
And then we use it as a lead generation, but we also use it as a high value piece of content in our email marketing.
Yeah. I guess also when it's such a small pool of people, you also have to behave well, because otherwise they probably tell each other, don't do business with this company if they are not behaving as they should.
Yes, it's true. Sometimes you also bring customers. That helps a lot if the stars match in terms of travel plans.
Yeah.
But that's how we run it. And typically, these kind of roundtables are part of our ABM playbook. After we have this report, we follow up with a webinar on a similar topic where we open up the learnings to a wider audience.
Yeah.
That gets us through till the next event.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our flywheel.
Super nice. I love when it gets really, really specific, because then I can steal the tactics and implement them into how we do things at Dreamdata as well.
You're welcome.
Has there been any, does the kind of the messaging align between the SME segment and the enterprise segment, or have you had to kind of develop separate kind of messaging and positioning documents and for the website and everything?
Yes, so the messaging is quite different. We decided to focus on our website on these larger customers.
Yeah.
For no other reason that, and even now as we're looking to expand to other countries like Italy and Spain, we find that very small companies are not very digitalized.
Yeah.
So I can definitely tell you, for example, we've been running paid ads on LinkedIn in Germany, and there after 6 months, I get to like a 27 penetration rate. Running ads in the UK, similar audience, I get like 52% penetration rate in a month. So that can give you an idea about the level of engagement with digital.
Are they all over at Sing in Germany still, or?
Zing is actually, still working.
It's still alive?
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm not going to ask how you know about that.
I had a colleague who worked in Germany, so he talked about Sing at some point. Okay, so the website is dedicated mainly to serving the enterprise market, but I guess you could still have landing pages promoting kind of the SME offering, and then send traffic there if you're buying it.
Yes, that's one level where we differentiate the message, and the second one is at the level of the sales process and sales collaterals.
Yeah.
Because typically in SME, an AE would engage with the CEO directly.
Yeah.
Who would, take all the decision, maybe bring their project manager, but that's it.
Yeah.
So obviously different messaging, different pains, and on the enterprise side, it's more complex.
Yeah, super nice. I mean, Monica, if we didn't change chapter a little bit, because now we teased in the event title that you actually managed to like 70% of the revenue you now see comes from this inbound method. I know you actually love to do maybe two things with numbers. One is kind of the budgeting component of kind of when you have these long sales cycle, how do you deploy budget? But if we start with the metrics that you kind of look at as a marketing leader in a company that do these kinds of things, what are I like to tend to kind of look at metrics as kind of leading metrics and then lagging metrics. as you did this kind of shift to this inbound model, what were kind of the leading metrics that you and your team has kind of thought about? What are the first things we need to be observing as we do this shift?
Good leading and lagging metrics. Yes, we also work with OKRs, so
Yeah.
I know where you are coming from. So initially, leading metrics, we had. So at day one, when we changed our positioning,
Yeah.
we had qualitative feedback from prospects and customers.
Yeah.
That's it.
Like, how are they reacting?
Do
Yeah.
they get it?
Yeah.
Do they get how our platform looks and what do we do? Are they confused? So that was super qualitative, let's say. Then we do message testing through ads. This is the second thing
Interesting.
that help us navigate our messaging. So basically, we have this concept saying, I don't know, we help you automate and simplify your GRESP reporting on the sustainability side. And then we take several angles. We do an angle around accuracy. Are the numbers in the report correct? We do
Yeah.
an angle about compliance. Do you report that when the due deadline is? We do an angle about the the consequences of not reporting correctly,
Yeah.
like bad reputation. And then we see from ads which ones get the most engagement.
That's a long while since I've heard somebody do that, but it's super smart. Then you can just sit back and wait to see who's engaging, how much people are engaging with the different messages. That's super nice.
Yeah, and some are super interesting results. So then we take the winning message and then we try to scale it. It can be scaled in a webinar topic or yeah.
I've always I always struggle when we do these kind of messaging changes to kind of validate. Obviously, there's always the qualitative component. Can you pick something up in a gong call or something like that? But you get some more volume to it when you look at the feedback or the engagement on the ads. I get.
Yeah, I mean, also being like a marketer researcher in my career, I really love qualitative testing first and foremost.
Okay.
And I do pull out a lot of quotes from our testimonials, calls, and get inspired by it. I also like to do the testing. Unfortunately, for example, Winter. I've worked a little bit with Winter. I think it's a great platform for
Yeah.
qualitative testing at scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, we try to do some testing without blowing up the budget.
Yeah. Okay. So qualitative testing, ads testing. What were kind of the next kind of things? Was it like visitors to the websites or stuff like that?
Website metrics, of course, not because traffic is a perfect proxy for brand awareness.
No.
It's not, but unless you have a big PR crisis or like some big fuck up,
Yeah.
you can sort of see if the trend is in the right direction.
Yeah.
So we also looked at that, and after that, we have two levels: the number of hand raisers. Are people asking for a demo? Do they connect on LinkedIn with us or ask for a demo via LinkedIn messaging?
Yeah.
And then the numbers of meetings booked.
Yeah.
These were kind of the leading metrics.
Yes. Somebody even say a meeting booked is also it's maybe somewhere in the, but when you have a 2-year journey, I guess it's it's still
lagging metric, depending where you want to sit.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I just lost the thought I had. That disappeared.
Okay. Let's pick a next.
No, yeah. So if you maybe just in terms of kind of marketing budgets, where like in percentage, kind of how do you spend your budget?
Yeah. So the largest chunk of our budget is actually events,
Yeah,
as
I could
mentioned.
imagine. Yeah.
because there are a lot of them and they're quite expensive.
Yeah.
So to give you an idea, we have Expo Real coming now in Munich, which is like an international show that is in the lower six-figure
Mm.
investment.
Yeah.
There's MIPI Minkan, there's
Yeah.
PropTech Connect. So like I would say 55% of our budget goes to
Yeah.
events.
But I mean, as you said, it does that for a reason, because you're in real estate and people need to see your face.
Yeah.
Do you have one or two tricks for events, for B2B people who run B2B go to these events?
Oh,
What's the best parts from your events playbook?
I have a lot of tricks because I also like to go to events and generate pipeline.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the first thing we do when we get access to the list of participants is we match it with our ICP and the
Yeah.
contacts in the buying committee from those ICP.
Yes.
Then booking the meetings process starts. And we typically start it very early, as soon as possible, because some events, I mean, if somebody says yes to you, they won't have time to say yes to your competitor.
Yeah.
So the sooner you can book meetings, the better.
That's a good low practical advice to just get in the calendar slot fast.
Yeah, get it there fast. Um, my advice, like generally, because I know events get a bad rep that they don't make the ROI, and this is also my knowledge from talking to a couple of event organizers, like what are your numbers, what are
Mm.
other customers saying about your event.
Yeah.
Apparently there is a break between marketing and sales here, because marketing deals, okay, a booth, a keynote, do I have lanyards and whatever else, and my job is done.
Mm.
But then the salespeople don't really, kind of just show up and hope people will come to your booth. Don't.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Only people who want to sell you stuff will come to your booth.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's one piece of advice. Make sure you pre-book meetings. What else worked for us really well? Fringe events. So don't stay at the booth. Go organize a lunch table, a round table. Have an ice cream happy hour.
Mm.
Try to identify what kind of leeway and space for creativity you have to do something different.
Yeah.
MIPIM is a great example. Here, we also went to somebody's else. They had a disco dancing, like with a disco bowl, and you know that blue smoke
Yeah,
and everything. And
definitely different.
yeah. Um, so that's that. At events, make sure you voice note everything, voice record everything, because if you meet like my colleague and I do like 10, 12 people a day, you won't know who said what.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think we've had also the best success we've had has also been like running events, doing events, because then your ICP is all kind of present in the same place, but most people won't necessarily walk up to your booth. You need to kind of like organize a happy hour somewhere, or have some sort of kind of different call to action to get on the radar of these people.
Yeah, and I don't know. Otherwise, I would say, if you don't manage to get a meeting, have some slack in your calendar to track that person down. And I can tell you, like one of my
That's
funniest,
funny.
we had this meeting, and then I'm gonna stop on the rambling on events. And I finally managed to have a meeting with that person in the ladies' toilet.
That's great. That's really determination.
Yeah, so these are my quick tips for events.
No, they're really good. I think it's a lot about things just doesn't happen at events. You need to take it like as a separate discipline, where you need to do certain things to actually come out with successful results. If we kind of look towards kind of where we are quickly running out of time already, but if you think about what's in the Alasco playbook for marketing the next year, what are the things that are moving in, and what are the things that you're kind of like moving a bit away from again?
Yeah, we'll start with the moves that, with the things that were dropping. So the things that really didn't work for us. Um, Maybe one obvious thing are analyst relationships. They're super difficult because analysts are geared towards horizontal platforms, not vertical ones.
I'll say some more about that.
So, for example, in the past, I've worked with Forrester, with Gartner, and obviously, in my new role, I got approached again by
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
But how do they make money? So obviously, that's always top of mind for me. They make money by selling to the largest companies in the world, especially US, UK, and APAC. So the largest companies in the world typically are not a construction company or like a vertical solution.
Yeah.
So they always favor solutions that can address whatever manufacturing, retail, so like generalistic solutions.
Uh-huh.
So you will never actually, they don't have any incentive to promote you who do specifically, I don't know, marketing attribution
Yeah.
or
Yeah, yeah.
financial controlling for construction.
Yeah.
We had a bit of success with Verdantics, which are great, but also they kind of expanded the sustainability angle across all industries. So it's a bit difficult, but
Yeah.
definitely for a vertical solution, analysts are not where I would put any more
Yeah.
resources.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also heavily looking at paid ads
Yeah.
to sort of reinvent how we do them. Because the thing that I'm concerned is with this LLM visibility thing and zero click search, and what's the role of paid ads in all of that?
Mm.
How does our website need to change?
Yeah.
So
That's
these are,
also something. The LLM visibility is also high on my radar at the moment.
yeah, I would love to maybe discuss in a one-on-one or two ideas. I'm not there yet to
Yeah.
talk about it.
It's one of the things that I have noted is that it looks like PR is back on the menu. Is because it looks like it trains where it finds topics and then it finds brands that are associated to the topic. And then if somebody asks about the topic, it will be suggesting brand names. And I think that's great news for everyone in PR again after a bunch of years where PR wasn't the most popular B2B sport.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. PR might be something we should all look at. Yeah, and another thing I'm looking at obviously is how do I structure the marketing team and the workflows given this AI thing?
Yeah.
Because what I've seen, I see like marketing teams moving towards like generalists and strategists rather than specialists.
Okay.
And I believe so far, kind of the jobs in marketing proliferated, mushroomed quite a bit, very narrow areas of specialization. And I think that will converge again towards people who have the capacity to understand the market context, the business context, and kind of do this context prompting in a smart way.
Yeah.
Because another thing that people say, you have to don't work hard, work smart.
Yeah.
But in order to work smart, you have had to work hard at some point, bump your head into some issues.
That's probably true.
So these are the things where I'm looking at and getting excited about.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just starting to dip my toes in this AI agents and having them do some of the tasks that we normally do in marketing, which will be interesting to see how whether we can go from this is fun to do or just exciting to watch to actually creating like real value for our company as well.
Well, let me know how that goes.
I will. Monica, for those who are listening and if they want to reach out to you or to Alasco, what path should we send them on?
Mm, I think LinkedIn is the best bet.
Yeah,
I'm
not
always on
not
LinkedIn because my customers are on LinkedIn. So
create a sync profile and connect.
no, that I won't do. No. So yeah, You can find me on LinkedIn. Sometimes I post stuff there. I also have a Substack.
Cool.
Yeah, it's in the early stages, but I'm looking into that, and I'm gonna be posting that map that I told you with the
Ooh, really nice.
Yeah, if you find it useful, yeah.
I'm sure I think for many companies that would be very useful.
So that's it. Easy.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, Monica. It's been a really big pleasure that you allowed me to ask these very specific questions and actually answered them as well. So I really, really appreciate
People
that.
don't answer.
And yeah, I'm sure the listeners takes a lot of, at least those that do a lot of ABM can take a lot of good stuff from it. So thank you for coming today, and thank you to everybody who's been listening to us.
Thank you.
See you
Keep up
guys.
the great job.